Hello everyone, and welcome back to the second episode of Building Liepāja in City Skylines 2. Thank you so much for joining me for another one. Today, as you can see by the title, obviously, I have decided on building a new area of Liepāja and focusing all of my attention on this area instead of jumping around as much. You may be asking, why have I decided this? I don't know. As I do, I just decide something, and then I go there and do it, and I don't have much of a reason for it. So at one point, I realized I haven't built anything in this area yet. I've built more of the downtown, the center of Liepāja, a lot of the streets there, and I haven't touched this area yet, but there's plenty of areas that I still haven't touched. So I arrived at this idea that I'm gonna concentrate a little more, jump around maybe a little bit less than usual, and try to create the street layout for this area. So this area is Ezerkrasts. The meaning is lake shore. The name was actually chosen by the residents. I assume in some kind of survey or something like that. It is the latest large area built in Liepāja. It was built in 1975. It is, so as the period suggests, it is a Soviet era microdistrict, as they're called. It is one of the bigger, it's one of the bigger ones. There's another one in the northern area. This is on the southern outskirts of the city. I really wanted to have like some cool, interesting history facts or tell you a little more about these areas that I'm creating if you're not familiar with Liepāja, even if you're Latvian, but you just don't really know much about Liepāja. I thought it would be fun to give you some interesting facts or general information or whatever, but finding any information on the internet in Latvia is horribly complicated and kind of impossible sometimes. So I tried, but other than Wikipedia, I really could not find sources. For some reason in Latvia, whenever you're trying to find information, usually your only sources is news articles or random official documents like published by government or anything like that. And I don't know why that is the case, but unfortunately it is complicated. Tiny little country problems. So that unfortunately means that I can't tell you really that much about it. Some areas were even more complicated to find information on. I really thought it would be cool to know like when different areas were built, especially the like Soviet period areas, because I've been watching Akruas. I don't actually know how to pronounce his name right, but he builds Altengrad in City Skylines 1, and I've been watching his videos recently over the last few months, and so I've gotten a lot of inspiration and like curiosity for Soviet era buildings and construction in general. So I thought like a little bit of inspiration from him could be cool to also talk about the areas when they were built, how they were built, but Jesus, it is so complicated. I can imagine maybe if I was in Liepāja. I'm not anymore. I lived in Liepāja for about 3 years recently, but I don't live there anymore. So I imagine if I could go to the museum and try to find some stuff out there. It's maybe I could find something, but yeah, unfortunately I'm not there anymore, so I can't really do that. So we do with what we have. For now, I'm creating the general street layout. I tried to make that central street Mirdzes Tempes Iela street, for those that don't know. Mirdzes Tempes Iela. That one and the bigger through streets. Honestly, Soviet era city layouts, if you're trying to make them like quite realistically, are kind of super complicated because the buildings aren't spaced out in the like normal logical sense, They're not just you make a grid and then you place the buildings right on the sidewalk of the street and it's kind of logical. In the microdistrict building style of the Soviet era, buildings I'm not a specialist in this area, but buildings are placed kind of freely to leave a lot of open space, a lot of green like field areas where there's usually playgrounds or just walking paths. Not much going on. It's not dense at all usually, and so it creates a really weird. It's way more complicated to make in city skylines because you're kind of used to building a road. You build a grid or something, or maybe a little wonky grid, but either way you build it and then you just zone right along the edges of it, and that's kind of it. But in this case, there's a lot of separation between uses. There's streets that generally are for car traffic and through traffic and so on, so those are the bigger, more simple streets to place. But then, since the buildings are placed kind of messily, or at least, well, sometimes they're in a pattern. It depends on the area and how much, how beautiful, I guess, they wanted it to be geometrically in a way. A lot of areas in Latvia, though, they're kind of not in a perfect geometrical shape, these Soviet era layouts. But they're kind of jagged in a way and staggered sometimes. Sometimes they're symmetrical, sometimes they're a little bit off, and sometimes they're way off. And all of this means that, it's just really annoying. It takes a lot of little alleyways that I used in this period because, well, we did not have Road Builder. I couldn't just make... Mostly they're currently 1 lane wide roads that go 2 ways, usually. And that's something that basically just doesn't exist in this game. You can make it with the invisible pathways, but that's going too far. So either the choice is 1-way streets and figure out some kind of layout, or using 2-way, alleyways. And they usually have parking on the sides because obviously modern day times we need a lot of parking everywhere for all the people with the cars. But in that time, it was not planned out very well because in Soviet era, having a car was kind of like a status symbol. It wasn't like it is in 2025 when everybody more or less has a car and it's pretty normal to have a car. So car parking spaces were not planned in the equation. That means the cars are parked on the tiny little alleys everywhere around because they used to be, for maybe a couple cars to go through, some horses, not in that period anymore, but maybe in rural areas actually, maybe. So that means that they're very tiny little areas, and I just couldn't make them in this time. But of course, I tried anyways, which means I used alleys as you can see, placing a lot of alleys and also a lot of pathways. Because one thing that you can say about Soviet era planning is that it's very walkable because obviously people didn't have that many cars. So there was public transit, which probably was never like the cutest and the most pleasant, but there was plenty of public transit to take you where you need to go, all the most important places. And there were plenty of pathways between all the buildings. So, it has some of its positives, but also there are a lot of negatives. But yes, all that to say, this was kind of one of the harder or at least more tedious areas to make because, since the buildings are placed wonkily, in real life, just place the road where it needs to be, doesn't really matter. But in city skylines, I'm like, okay, so this little tiny part of the street where it goes right parallel to the house is straight, but then there's a little curve here, then it goes a little farther to the left side, then it's a little here, and it curves a little right here. And since I'm a crazy person and I want all of this detail to satisfy me so I can feel like, oh yes, this is this area that I've seen in real life that I recognize and it feels right. So that means that I try a little bit too hard to make them all look the way that they should. So here I'm placing a bunch of, for some reason, I guess just for fun, because I saw it in the overlay. I'm about to place some of these pathways that lead from the house. I don't even have the actual apartment buildings to place there yet. This is a time when there were no region packs out yet. All we had was base game buildings, and I found something that I think could have roughly worked in that place, but I didn't know where the actual paths of the house were. But I don't know, I just placed it for fun. You see, this one thing that I will say I regret about this series is I really regret not starting editing sooner, because now that I've started editing the videos, well, I had edited the intro video that I made, but I hadn't edited the actual gameplay at all. And seeing it, how, like, especially wanting to have something to say about the videos, not just throw a video on the screen and put on some music in the background. It's just the structure. There's no structure, basically, which is that's kind of the downfall of this series, at least for the first few episodes, where I was not planning along to how all this works. I can't give you like nice overviews of areas that I've created. I can either take like screen grabs from the video, or I have a couple saves, but I did not save a new save every time I finished building on that day, which means I don't have like a final overview available of every episode. So that's, yeah, I wish that I had, I don't know, motivated myself a little more, or found that motivation somehow to start editing earlier and to post these videos earlier, because it took me a goddamn year to get it all out, which is embarrassing. But I don't know, it's a thing with me, it happens. So that means that, yeah, these videos, the structure, it leaves a lot to be hoped for. But I can promise you that a couple videos later, once we've gotten through this period of just randomly thrown together clips, I hope that this series will start to make a little more sense and be a little more logical. Right here, yeah. Occasionally, I placed a few service buildings just because I knew that if I wanted to, if I wanted to have a couple buildings placed, the people are gonna need services. So, obviously, since this is a long time ago, we didn't have any of the extra assets, not even region packs, but we didn't have the couple extra service buildings that they added at some point. So yeah, I placed these. Some of them kind of work. Honestly, some of them, yeah, from the base game are kind of fine. Also, some of them I still don't really have like the perfect asset. That's kind of a whole thing with Cities Skylines 2, and the fact that we still don't have the asset editor. I have to wonder, what could possibly take this much time? I think they planned to have the asset editor in the game pretty early on, or I don't know how early on, but I'm surprised that the game has been out for about a year and a half at this point. And yeah, there's still no asset editor. So it's sad. Somehow, people are finding ways to use assets. I've been pretty scared to use the custom assets that we have right now with the asset packs manager, that mod. I've used it a little bit. I used it at the very start when it came out, and it like almost broke my city, my first city that I was working on. So I got kind of scared, and I stopped using it after that. I tried it recently now, and it seems to be better. It seems like it's not as glitchy, but yeah, it's still kind of questionable. So unfortunately, there are a lot of things that would satisfy me that if I could have like really accurate buildings. Ooh, also some of the what I could call like Liepāja signature buildings, like there's the big concert hall, that's Big Amber. It would be awesome if I could get the asset of the actual building and get it in the city. That would be really satisfying to actually have that, because that's like one of the most significant buildings in Liepāja. I would say, what else? the Trīsvienības cathedral, the cathedral building. That could be significant. But there's not that many buildings in Liepāja that I feel like really need to be actually in the game from real life to make it feel like it. I even somehow, surprisingly, there is a building in the base game of Cities Skylines that looks a lot like the concert hall. I was surprised about that. Unfortunately, it's not as orange. I tried to recolor it at some point, but nah, you know what? I mean, you can kind of, it's kind of all right. I remember in the series, the person who built Riga in City Skylines 1, he had the Latvian library, the National Library, and that was really cool to see, the actual building, because that's one of like a couple buildings. Riga obviously has more of those that are very special just to Riga. But yeah, I think it would be awesome if we could have that the cathedral. No, what am I saying? The concert hall. These streets, I'm looking at them also. Wait, no, I do have anarchy. I think some of them, maybe like the very first video, maybe didn't have anarchy or something like that. Wait, do I have? Yes, I do. Why am I not using it? I think I'm turning it on right now. These streets are such a mess with the sidewalks, like I think the sidewalks are supposed to be there on the actual street, but like, yeah, maybe I could just try to not put in as much of the exact replica details, but I don't know. It just makes it more satisfying for me. So I am really struggling with these streets. These streets were a mess. Most of these streets, as I said, like the little access. No, what could you call this? The streets that go right up to the buildings, the Soviet apartment buildings. Those were really annoying to recreate exactly, especially since like these weren't accurate sizes, since I didn't have parking on alleys, or I didn't have 90-degree parking on one side. All of this was not available at this time, so all I did was just place a couple alleys. That honestly, I have went through a lot of the city with Road Builder, but I haven't gone through this area as Erkrasts yet in Road Builder. So I feel like I'm gonna have to replace a lot of the streets that I made here, because I mean, you know, I could just not do that. I could just chill a little bit, but I think I will at least try at some point to get all this parking in and something like that. We'll see. We'll see in the future. Honestly, maybe it would have been better if I had started this series now instead of starting it a year ago, because I would have all these assets and all this stuff that I wouldn't have to replace these old things that I created, or just started a new city. I don't know, but it's sad. I really like working on Liepāja. I like working in the city and trying to get these real life places replicated in a video game. So yeah, it might be a little annoying to work on stuff several times in a row, but in the end, it gives some pretty satisfying glances. It also, I just got an idea. I should totally occasionally try to. I know that I will later have some like walkthrough type of videos where I go down to roughly first person view, like a human scale view, and like walk around the city and walk around some of the streets. At this period, I didn't have that many buildings and so on, so there wasn't that much to look at yet, but something for the future, I could do that a little more and compare with photos from real life, either from Street View or photos that I have taken myself or something like that. That could be nice. You know what I was really surprised by? It's been about a week and a half since I put out the first episode, the intro episode, and it's gotten like almost 60 views, which, wow, that's so cool. Imagine having 60 views, like famous, right? Yeah, I was pretty surprised, honestly. I mean, obviously that is like a minuscule amount, but the fact that this is like the first video that I posted on this account, and it was just a 3-minute video about talking about the idea of making this, I was pretty surprised. Yeah, there were a couple people and a couple subscribers. Thank you. I should say this. Thank you to the current like 5 people I think that have subscribed to this account, this channel. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for, I guess, being interested enough to give me a little subscription and stick around. Oh yes, let me do the YouTuber things. If you are enjoying this video, I would appreciate a comment from you, some little interaction, engagement, engagement as they say, or give this video a like if you enjoyed it, so I know that you're having a fun time. Give me a little subscription on the subscription button if you think that's something that I deserve. We are kind of nearing the end of this episode. I actually split this up into 2 parts, the building azerkrasts, because, as I said, it was kind of a whole big ass task that I went through trying to stick to this area and not run off somewhere else in a second. So I did split it up because it took a really, I built almost all of this in one day, I think. Yeah, so just one of those days when you sit down and build an entire area. But still no buildings, and the buildings are going to take a while. I tried to place streets at this time and tried not to place too many buildings because of the fact that we don't really have that many buildings available in the game. But currently, I would say we're pretty good to recreate most of these places. Anyway, yeah, thank you for watching this. I will be uploading the next part of this pretty soon because, it's related. But thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Why am I just running around random places? I don't know. Okay, see you in the next one. Bye-bye.